welcome once again to Let's Talk Marriage. This is Pastor Larry coming to you this Wednesday afternoon with Let's Talk Marriage. All right. We're going to get right on into our session on today. I hope everyone is doing well. If you woke up this morning, you are doing well. All right, we're going to get right on into our session. Our session on today is going to be called Don't Give Up on Love. Again, welcome to Let's Talk Marriage. And the session today is Don't Give Up on Love. I know a lot of you or someone you might know might have been in a bad relationship with someone, and after the relationship was over, they kind of gave up on it. They kind of gave up on marriage, whether it was in a bad marriage or just a bad relationship. They kind of given up on love and just saying, oh, I don't want to be married, I'm fine just the way I am. And what, sometimes it's because you were with the wrong person. Sometimes you can be with the wrong person and not realize it until after you get out of the situation. And then once you get out of the situation, sometimes you have to allow, like we talked about this several times, allow yourself time to heal. And once you allow yourself time to heal, please don't, by all means, never close your heart up, because sometimes, especially if you've been in a bad relationship, you might close your heart on, Mr. Right or your Boaz or your soulmate could be trying to communicate with you, and you don't want to be bothered because of the bad relationship that you were in before. That's why, again, it's very important to close those chapters from previous relationships, whether they're good or bad. If it was a good one and just ended in a bad way, make sure you close those chapters on that, because you don't want to give up on love. And the thing about it is, you learn from your mistakes. You learn from the mistakes that others made toward you, or the things that people did toward you. You learn from those and you grow from those. So you don't give up on love. Sometimes we, by all means, again, don't marry the first person that come along. Make sure you get to know that person. And that might have been the case the first time. You never really got to know that person. And then once you found out that, or once you got to know that person, you found out they were going in a different direction than what you were going in. You should be both going in the same direction. So make sure that you are examining these persons. Make sure you know these people before you decide to start a relationship or even enter into marriage with them. Make sure you know them. But by all means, don't give up on love. Sometimes we, especially again after you've been in a bad relationship, it's just the last thing you want to think about, which it should be right after any kind of bad relationship. That should be the last thing that you think of. Make sure you allow yourself time to heal. And once you allow yourself time to heal, open your heart again, because you want to make sure that you find happiness, and you don't want to give up on love. And sometimes people think that marriage is like a fairy tale. It's not hard, and it's not like a fairy tale, because sometimes your dreams might not, or your plans might not be God's plans. That's why sometimes you hear people say, when we make plans, God laughs at our plans, because that's not his plan for our lives. So when you enter into a relationship, make sure that you get to know that person before you walk down the aisle with them. You don't want to marry someone that you don't know, because things will start to come out, and then you close your heart up. But again, don't give up on love. Open up your heart, to that person. Don't be gullible. Some people be real gullible, and guys, don't take, when you have a good wife. We talked about the men last week having a good man, but guys, when you have a good wife, make sure you are not taking them for granted or taking him for granted. And women, when you have a good husband, make sure you don't take him for granted. Sometimes we think that the husband don't look the way we think it should look, or the wife don't look the way we think she should look. That's besides the point. What's in the heart is what's matter. If that person is for you, that person always have your back, that person has never let you down, that person always been there for you, that is the person for you. So when you meet someone, just because they don't look the way you think they should look, give them a chance. Give them a chance. Open up that's why when I said open up your heart, that's what I mean. Give them a chance. And, because Mr. Right doesn't necessarily look like Mr. Right. Or Mr. Right doesn't look like Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic could be a playboy. You don't want to get involved with someone like that just because we think they look good for the moment. Because sometimes anybody could look good for the moment. If you've been lonely for a long time and haven't had a companionship in a long time, anybody will start to look good. So you have to make sure we are very careful when we enter into relationships, and make sure, just because someone say that they're in church, make sure you find out if they really are in church. If they say they're in church, volunteer to go to church with him one Sunday and see what kind of reaction he gets at church among the other parishioners at the church. If they all know him, and he's involved in the church, then you'll know that he's really in church, and how he's looked at in church. If he has relatives in the church, if he has a brother or sister, or he's a deacon, or he's part of the ministerial staff, or any thing in the church. Just make sure that he actually goes to the church, because sometimes people will tell you what you want to hear. They'll tell you that they go to church and they have never been to church, or they've been to church and haven't been in a long time. So you want to make sure that they tell they're honest with you. So you just volunteer to go to church. For the same thing with guys, when you meet a young lady, if she says she's in church, volunteer to go to church with her, one Sunday, and see how she reacts in church. If she's one of those people that like to shout in church, or get happy in church, how do you say it? Get happy in church. See what her reaction is when you're with her. If she still does the same thing, then you'll know that, she's real. Same thing with the guys. If they go to church and they're really into it, they're standing up, they're clapping their hands, and they're saying amen real loud, and everybody knows them, and you have to make sure that you know these people. So don't give up on relationships. Don't give up on marriage. And some people, after they've had a bad marriage, they never get married again. You don't want to give up on love, because the person that's your soulmate could be right down the street, or right in the church that you've been in for so many years. That person could very well be in that church that you're attending, or they could be in another church that they are attending. But make sure you don't give up on love. Make sure that we are respecting each other as husband and wives, and again, listening to each other. We talk about that. That's another reason why a lot of times you give up on love, because you feel like you're unheard. Nobody listens to you. That's why it's important to listen to your spouse. Sometimes you might hear something you don't want to hear, but it is good to listen to someone. Sometimes people just want to vent. They just want to get some things off their chest. So make sure that we are doing that, and following each other, and being with each other, and supporting each other. And again, make sure we are listening. That is the hardest thing with couples. They don't listen to each other. I don't want to. I know what I'm talking about. You might as well. We might know what you're talking about, but it doesn't hurt to listen to what the other party is saying. And we give up on love because we feel like we're not heard in our relationships. So make sure that you are listening to your spouse. Let them vent sometimes. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. Just acknowledge that you are listening to them and let them, vent. They might not be venting toward you, but it could be venting from something from the job or something that happened within her family, with one of the family members or something, and they're just talking to you about it. And remember now, if she's talking to you about one of her family members, make sure you don't take sides. Because as soon as you start taking sides, what do you mean? Ain't you on my side? So make sure you don't take sides when she's talking about. Just listen. When she's like, for instance, she's saying something about her mother, about her father, about her sister. Make sure you just listen. And try to. So sometimes you have to just sit back and listen. Say, okay, all right, I hear you. But you make sure that you are listening to each other and supporting each other. I always talk about that in the show, that we support each other as married couples. And especially with the things are nowadays, there's so many marriages that are failing. There's so many families being broken up. And it's not always easy on the kids. When there's a breakup between the mother and father, it's very hard on the children. So, and there's so many, especially in the black and brown community, there's so many single parents out there. There's so many single mothers trying to raise children alone. If you have to have a split marriage, or if the marriage split, make sure that you're communicating with the other party, and make sure that there's no animosity there. You have to get over that. And it's not easy. I'm a witness to that. It's not easy, but you have to get over things like that. Make sure that you are respected, and don't by any means, the title of today's topic, don't give up on love. There's always a lesson to be learned from previous relationships. Excuse me, from previous relationships. There's always a lesson to be learned from that. You learn and you grow. That's how you grow. You grow from. We all grow from our mistakes. We all make mistakes. I'll be the first to say there's no marriage that's perfect, but there are good marriages and excellent marriages. But there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. Just like some people go around from church to church trying to find a perfect church, and some people jump in and out of different relationships because they're looking for a perfect relationship. There's not going to be a perfect relationship, but you work together to obtain perfection in that relationship, because there's no such thing as a perfect relationship, but you work toward getting or being there as a perfect relationship. So that's why I said don't give up on love. Don't give up on your marriage just because you have little spats here and there, especially if they're little crazy things that you're arguing over. Don't give up on your marriage over that. Again, I always say on this program, make sure you seek some kind of marriage counseling especially if you still love your husband, or you still love your wife. Don't give up on your marriage. Hang in there as long as you can, and if you reach to that, or you get to that conclusion where you have to make that separation or even divorce, make sure you do it without animosity, because there's so many times when people separate, there's a lot of animosity, and it rubs off on the kids. The kids are like caught in the middle, and you don't want things like that to happen, because it does happen. So you have to make sure it does not happen. In things that are, especially with the things that are going on in the world today, there's so many things in social media that are distracting, that people can come after you on social media, or come after your marriage on social media, and things like that. So you have to make sure that you are respecting your spouse. Make sure that you're hanging in there with them and supporting them. Again, I love to use that word support, because we don't support each other like we should in our relationships. And make sure that you don't give up on love, because your Mr. Right can be right there. That's why they called it Mr. Right, because he could be right there. And Mr. Right, again, Mr. Right does not mean he look perfect. Mr. Right doesn't mean that he's always, or Miss Right don't mean that they look perfect, going to always be perfect and never make mistakes. There's no such thing as that. Mr. Right does not mean Mr. Perfect. So you have to realize that. So make sure that we are working on our marriages. And again, I always say on this program that marriage is not hard. We make things hard. When we make things hard by doing things that can't help or enhance the marriage. So you have to make sure you do things to enhance the marriage, do things that's going to motivate each other, do things that's going to keep the fire burning, make sure that you tell your wife often, or tell your husband that you love them. There's nothing wrong with showing a little affection in your marriage, in your relationship. This is Pastor Larry. I'm going to be signing off on today with Let's Talk Marriage. Now remember, don't give up on love. That person, your soulmate, is right there. Just hang in there. This is Pastor Larry. I'm going to be signing off with this session of Let's Talk Marriage. All right. Now, any music that you hear on here is from a app called Whoop Triggers Plus. It's on the Android and the Apple programs. This is Pastor Larry. Until we meet again with Let's Talk Marriage.